So tonight we have two modular multi-tools that are sort of the exception to the rule. These are basically the only fully modular inside tool multi-tools on the market at the moment. So we've got the Roxon Flex, which will soon be released. This is a pre-production model that was sent out for testing. And then this is the Go tool, which you can already order on their website. And these two tools go about delivering function a little bit differently, and each of them have some strengths, and each of them do have some weaknesses as well. Now, when you look at these two, just from everyday practical grab and go, I believe the Roxon Flex has the advantage. What I mean by that is you can simply open this up. You can go ahead, use the pliers. You can deploy the tools very easily this way. Roxon does an excellent job with making a comfortable multi-tool, and there's just a lot of ease of use. Even in swapping out the tools, how it works is you go ahead and this is unlocking it. And then if you were to push this all the way to the bottom, then you go ahead and you just take it out. Go ahead and make sure the tools are slipped over to the other side. And there you go, you're ready to go again. So it's a very painless, very easy to use system. Now with the GOAT, one of the things you'll notice is that when you deploy the tools, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But a lot of times, especially on this side, the locking lever will deploy with the tool as well. And then you have to push it down, sort of have to keep it down that way. And then it just makes it a little bit harder and the system doesn't seem quite as refined. But then on the other side as well, if you have the misfortune to try to remove this tool that's right next to this longer tool right here, there's a spacer in there. Let's just go ahead and do this. So let's look at this right here. Let's go ahead and extend this tool. So when you try to get this back in, you're combating not only these tools going, falling over to some extent, and there we go. And that actually was a little bit easier than the first time. But sometimes that spacer can come over and it's a big issue. Now, how you get over that is you just go the next tool over. So it's not a huge issue, but it can be a little bit annoying. So let's go ahead and deploy the Roxon Flex. Let's go ahead and do it this side because it's easier since I'm right-handed. We'll go ahead and put this down here. All right, so we took out the Phillips, and then we'll go ahead and make sure we have enough space to put it back. And there we go, we're done. So there's no spacers in between that you have to worry about. It's a lot easier to do, but again, with practice, this isn't hard. And again, it's been a little while since I used my GOAT. So since I was trying to work with a little bit tonight, it is a little bit easier to use it. But what I'm saying is, for the first time user of a modular system, the Roxon Flex is a little bit easier to use. Now, when we get into things like weight, the Go tool is about an ounce lighter, but what I found is when I add my bronze scales on, it actually makes these basically the same weight. So this is like 8.7 ounces. This is 8.9 ounces. So again, it's around that 252 grams. Both of these are pretty close to that. When you add the add-ons to the GOAT, like I did with these bronze scales. Now, when we talk about price, I think the Go tool sometimes is on sale for 110 or 120, somewhere around there. And I've heard lower pricing for the Roxon. I haven't gotten official word directly from Roxon, but it does seem from what I've heard that the Roxon Flex will be a little bit cheaper. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. Now, one of the big advantages too is that the Roxon pliers are a little bit better than the GOAT. Now, this was the big issue with GOAT, was that unfortunately The pliers, I had to mod these and actually take some metal away from the back, and then I was able to go ahead and use the cutters. Now on the Roxon right here, you can just use them as they are. But I do want to put a caveat, because you do have to be very intentional about using the hard wire cutters, because they don't always quite break as good as some other ones. When I mean break, I mean cut. Because what we have going on is we have like a lip at the bottom right there. And I feel like sometimes maybe the wire gets cut. And then if you'll notice, these are pretty thick cutters right here as well. So with the goat, once I modified mine, I can, let's see, well, I thought I could. There, I can cut cohanger, but it still is a little bit more difficult, definitely, than the Roxon. And the Roxon I didn't have to mod. It's just, it's a little bit thicker cutters than we're used to. So again, overall, you know, Roxon may need to thin up their cutters, but unfortunately Goat needs to totally change their pliers. So there is that. Keep that in mind. So before I go too much further, I did want to mention that Andrew has done a lot of work on his channel with the Goat multi-tool. And so I will put a link below to at least one of his videos or to his channel, and then you can check out his stuff as well. And he's the one that I originally found out how to go ahead and grind out some of the tool and get the cutters to work at all. So big thanks to him again. So again, when we talk about pliers, I don't think for the average person, we will be cutting coat hangers most days or fencing wire. Now, some people, obviously, if you're out west on a ranch or something, you might. But for the average person, I don't think the pliers or even the cutters will be that big of an issue. But for some of you, perhaps this information will be useful. Now, when we look at the pliers right here, we notice that the Goat are they look a little bit shorter and a little bit more blunt, whereas in Roxon has gone with more of the standard like needle nose tip right here at the end as well. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's go ahead and fold these up. Now, again, when we talk about length, the Roxon will be just a hair touch longer. I don't know. They're about the same size, to be honest. And then let's talk about thickness right here. So the Goat tool is a little bit thicker, especially with the scales that I've added. So probably it'd be about the same size without the scales, but the scales do add some thickness to it as well. All right. So we've talked about some of the pliers, we've talked about some of the locking system, and one of the things also I want to mention is that the Flex is a very comfortable multi-tool, but I was surprised when I brought my Goat tool back out, and it actually is a fairly comfortable tool as well in the hand. So I think the Flex might have a tiny bit advantage, but they're almost neck to neck in that score as well. Now, some people will mention that the Roxon Flex has essentially one less larger tool in the handle, and that is true. So with the Goat, you can get 2 full-length tools in the handle, where with the Roxon, you will only get 1 full-length tool, and then you get around 4 other tools that fit, smaller tools that fit in the handle. So keep that in mind as well. So there is a little bit difference. Now, you do have the modularity, and again, I did want to mention that with Roxon, they gave me a whole bunch of different options for the Flex, and be sure to check out my first video where I go a little bit more in length. We've got the scalpel holder, the fishing tool, you've got the diamond file, serrated blade, regular knife, got the file, the saw, and so you've got a lot of options. And then you can buy the bit kit, and that takes us to the next point. the bit kit and you can use that on your 1/4 inch driver. Now this is a 4mm size bit kit, but I did show how you can sort of cheat the system and use a 1/4 inch adapter that has a little bit narrower hole in the back, and then that does fit on this as well to some extent. Now, that's one of the big advantages that the GOAT does have over the Flex, is that the GOAT does have a full 1/4 inch bit driver. So that is a big deal, and I'll tell you why. So especially if you're the trades like I am, I'm in HVAC still, a lot of times I'm running up against using or trying to unloosen 1/4 inch metal screws. They use that, and it seems like about everything in sheet metal. And so a lot of times I need not just a screwdriver, but a nut driver. And that's where the 1/4 inch bit driver really comes in handy, because you can use that as a nut driver as well. I think that's what, some companies perhaps don't get, how useful that is. It's a double function tool, and I use it. I can't tell you how many times it really, really comes in handy. Now, for the normal person, probably not. It's probably not that big a deal. And so, on vacation or just at home, no, you're not going to be undoing sheet metal screws most of the time. But for those of us in the trades, that can come in very handy. You don't have to perhaps take a extra 15 minutes to run and grab a tool out of a box. You can just have it right there in your pocket or on your belt. So that is one thing that I hope Roxon does in the future, is add a 1/4 inch bit driver, because I do find those extremely, extremely useful. Now it will be a little hard to compare the tool sets of the Roxon and the GOAT. And when I mean tool sets, I mean the extra tools, because I'm not sure all that Roxon is going to offer. So this is the sampling they sent me, but I'm not sure what all they'll offer. And perhaps I should fan out the tools that are here onto the Roxon. And I have swapped out a couple, but you do have the serrated blade, you've got the chisel, and then you've got the wire stripper and the wire stripping sheath cable stripper as well. Got the cutting hook, you've got the awl, and you've got a file, depth gauge, and like a small screwdriver on this side. On the other side, you do have a nice pair of scissors. You've got this can opener, you've got a bottle cap lifter, screwdriver, Phillips screwdriver, and then you've got the scissors as well. So one of the things I thought we probably should do before we wrap this up is actually do a scissor test. Now, unfortunately, my son did not know how this worked, the GOAT tool worked, and so he pulled the GOAT scissors backwards the wrong way. So he pulled them out this way, or he tried to force them shut, and he broke the small spring, and that spring very easily snapped. So I don't know if that was just, if he was that strong. I don't think he's that strong, but maybe he was. And that's one thing I really was a little frustrated with. But I looked at Roxon, and their spring doesn't look extremely larger. So until using this for a lot longer, I guess I really can't say if one is necessarily better than the other. I do feel like the Roxon scissors are a little bit smaller. So keep that in mind. And they both are very sharp, but the Roxons are a little bit smaller. So, but they both work very well, again. So both of them are excellent scissors. So in the end, which one should you buy? Well, again, I do find the Roxon Flex off the bat just a little bit easier to use. Because you do have these levers that sort of get in the way, and I do think that's a little bit harder of a system to use than this right here. I should mention too that these right here lock the tools in the handle so they don't fall out, and so that is definitely an advantage as well. So both of these tools have a lot of advantages, and it's up to you to decide which one you like.